in a 60-second or 90-second, kind of quiz, because you don't have, the luxury of like hours. Um, they get to know you, you get to know them a little better, they get to learn something about themselves, and they get to decide whether or not they want to take another step with you. And you haven't necessarily gone into and just, give me a credit card and, we're on our way, because that's proposing marriage on the first date. It's not very fun.
Welcome to the Business Ownership Podcast, brought to you by Awareness Strategies, helping you navigate the waters between entrepreneurship and ownership. Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelec, and I'm super glad that you're here with us today because I'm here with my most amazing guest, Catharine. Catharine, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So give everybody a highlight of who you are and what you do for business.
My name is Catharine O'Leary. I am the self-appointed quiz queen, and we can get into how I self-appointed myself. But I actually help service-based entrepreneurs, businesses, coaches, and consultants to create a consumer and client feedback loop, so that they are able to ask questions and listen to the answers, and able to incorporate that information into client insights that helps them leverage that into products and services that your clients are asking you for. So if we just listen, we do a lot better with our clients.
Larry, so how did you get into quizzes as your thing? And then how did you self-appoint? And was there a tiara involved?
Of course there was a tiara involved. But I spent the last 30 years in corporate, in market research and consumer insights. So regardless of the company that I was either working with or for, we were doing the market research for them. So I asked a lot of questions to a lot of different people globally. And what we do is we take that information and translate it into new products, new services, new marketing strategies, new sales conversations for the likes of Apple and Adobe, HP, Pepsi. So we were always, we were the translators between what clients were wanting and needing and complaining about, and what does that mean to the Super Bowl, bundles for the next Super Bowl, like what chips and pop needed to go together, or what did Apple need to talk about in their iTunes platform next, or whatever that that client needed at the time. So that's what I've done for the past 30 years, with varying results depending on how willing the corporation was to listen to their own clients. And those that didn't listen didn't do as well as those that did. Apple listens really well. BlackBerry did not listen at all. So you you do the math.
It's really unfortunate because I really liked BlackBerry.
I miss my BlackBerry so much, and I get to talk about BlackBerry because I was a senior consumer insights manager at BlackBerry when all hell broke loose. So yeah,
I did not know
there's
that.
stories. There's stories. Yeah. Oh yeah. No,
Nice.
there's interesting stories. So I think it was the BlackBerry experience actually that made me self-appoint myself as quiz queen, because like once you live through that, really you should just reign over everyone. So so I am now the quiz queen, but it's really about making sure that really good questions are asked, that people go on a bit of a self-discovery journey, that we are solutions based and relationship based as opposed to transactions, and we're building communities, because there's a paradigm shift coming. I think it's actually already here, that is walking away, or that whole transactional salesy pushy conversation is no longer really accepted, and it's really about relationships and asking questions and getting to understand people better, and really working with the people that are good fit for you, and each other, so that it's a win-win on both sides.
I keep saying, what? No more ShamWow guy, but poor ShamWow guy, he's nailed for it. We all know who I'm really talking about. And if you don't, come talk to me. Happy to explain that one. When it comes to quizzes, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions and experiences of what they are. So let's get into kind of what they are first, and then how that changes the conversation and why. Because I think it's important to understand that it's not just a kind of what type of Disney princess are you kind of quiz that we're talking about. It's
Yeah.
so get into that.
Well, I mean,
Go.
when you sit down with a friend, so if Michelle and I are sitting down at Starbucks and she says, you know what, I'm having a hard time, really attracting my ideal clients. Like I'm getting a lot of those tire kickers and freebie seekers and so on. Um, I don't want to jump into saying, oh, you should do a quiz, even though I probably will eventually say that. But maybe she's tried a quiz, maybe she's tried other things, maybe there's something else that's better. So before I jump into a solution like that, I want to ask a few questions, because I don't know if my solution is even right for Michelle yet, because I haven't actually asked anything. So like, what business is Michelle in? What has she tried in the past? What's worked, what hasn't? Why hasn't it worked in her opinion? What challenges does she have? Like, let's have a quick get to know you conversation on the problem. And then I'm in a better situation to say, oh, yeah, this, or this. You can try, and that might be solving your problem. So if you think about a quiz like a two-way conversation where your clients go on a little bit of a self-discovery tour of, okay, this is my problem. This is my, I call it the 3 a.m. question. This is my problem, like, ask me some questions to make me think about it. And then, at the end, you can say, oh, okay, well, based on what you said, this, try this part first. Cause there's going to be a lot probably to discuss in getting all the way to the solution. But let's try this part first, because this is the part that's challenging the most. So you're meeting your clients where they're at. You're listening to them. They've gone on a little bit of a self-discovery journey. They've learned a little bit about themselves. So not your Disney princess, but maybe it's, what's your biggest hurdle to getting to that next level? Or, what's your next best hire? What's your superpower, your coaching superpower? You've learned something about yourself as a client, but you've also learned something about the business. And the business is offering you solutions to the problem that you're actually having, that you can take on right away. And then if you want to get to know them better and you want to continue the conversation, that's where, the business can invite you further to have a workshop or a mastermind or a call or whatever that is. So it's a lot of like it's a lot of touch points in a very small time frame, right? So like in a 60-second or 90-second, kind of quiz, because you don't have, the luxury of like hours. Um, they get to know you, you get to know them a little better, they get to learn something about themselves, and they get to decide whether or not they want to take another step with you. And you haven't necessarily gone into and just, give me a credit card and, we're on our way, because that's proposing marriage on the first date. It's not very fun.
So when it comes to these quizzes, is it like a lot of times I think the quizzes took the world by storm once upon a time for a very short while there, because people, I don't know if they had the software or what, but it was really easy to do too. It's like, what color do you like? What picture do you like? It didn't take a whole lot of thought process to be able to do that. Whereas kind of what's your next best hire, I think requires a lot of thought for some people. How do you balance kind of where the insight is
Yeah.
and making them sit down and brain crunch for a while?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of people think of a quiz, for example, as a tool, as a vehicle, which it is. Um, at the end of the process, that's what it is. At the beginning of the process, actually, it's more of a strategic conversation and sitting down and really making sure you understand your ideal client's, needs and wants. What is that 3 a.m. question that they're dealing with? What is it in their words, not yours? How do they wake up at 3 a.m. thinking of it? For example, my clients don't wake up thinking of quiz funnels. Like no one but me wakes up at 3 a.m. thinking of quiz funnels. That's not the words that they use. So that's not the wording that I should use in my messaging, right? So, really sitting down and thinking through that clarity of the 3 a.m. question, and then what what's the stepping stones between the problem that your client is having and your solution. So what are the kind of the things that you need to know and they need to know a little bit to make the solution make sense, and those are your questions. So it's not like a weekender. I'm going to put together a PDF, checklist and be done and have my lead magnet ready for the next summit next Tuesday, right? This is a little bit more strategy and upfront. It's people are using quizzes or have been using quizzes as glorified email captures. And I mean, they're great at that, but that's 10% of the iceberg. That's only the tip, right? So let's, get into the other 90% of asking really smart, good questions that help your client actually, get on board with your solution before you even talk to them. So that your next conversation with them is that much more further along and they're ready to kind of get started with you. But it takes a little time to actually, put all that together. And but once you have it together, that's all your messaging, right? That's like, you are well and ahead of your competition. And connecting with your ideal clients on a much deeper level right from the start of your conversations with them.
So what I hear you saying is that if what's your next best hire is their 3 a.m. issue, they've already thought about it for the last 6 months. They're like, oh, just need this now. And
Yeah.
it becomes easy for them to answer those kind of questions. Because my understanding of a good quiz, you said it was in 90 seconds. I don't know if anybody can complete 10 questions in 90 seconds because they can't read that fast. But there's a cadence to how you want them to kind of see this and look at it and embrace it. How do you help them to create that cadence?
So I think, there are, I mean, from 30 years in market research, there are ways to ask questions that are, proven to be, good ways to get the data in the back end so that you trust the data. So they're not misleading questions or they're not like, trying to push people one way or the other, or they're, not confusing. So there are kind of some, you know, techniques to use for the questions, but really it's about, kind of going from the very general questions, like what type of business do you have, to the very specific on the challenge that they're having at that 3 a.m. So there's a bit of a process of taking through those stepping stones of, okay, like you've got this 3 a.m. question. Let's break that down a little bit. Tell me a little bit more about your business. Tell me a little bit more about, what's going on right now. Tell me a little bit more about what your challenges have been specifically, in your business, and then specifically to this topic. And then tell me where you want your business to be in a year. And then based on all of that, I can tell you that, oh, this is the part of the solution that you might want to focus on because that's your biggest challenge. So it takes a little bit of, thinking through the process, the journey, of, getting people from the problem to the solution. And that's the fun part for me. And then the even more fun part is the data on the back end when you get to actually learn a little bit more about your clients and make some decisions based on that information.
And is there, in your experience, a better way to present the information? Because I've seen in the past, I know I've done, let's be honest, I've done in the past where it looks like War and Peace and you have to read it and then you can answer a yes, no question at the end. It's like, I am not going through this. So is there kind of a better way now to be able to present that information?
Well, I think if you have like if it reads like a survey, like a quiz, right? So one question on each kind of slide, if you will. Because if you put it all in a Google form and it's like one great big huge running document, it's going to look like a mortgage application. And nobody wants to fill out a mortgage application. They just want the mortgage. They want the house. So and
Yeah,
it's
let's be
also,
honest, they don't want the mortgage, they want the house.
They want the house, exactly.
I think that's a very important caveat to understand in all of this, is that nobody wants to go through the
Nobody
thing.
wants the
They
mortgage.
want the apple at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So don't make it hard for them. Like don't try to get every single piece of information known to mankind in one quiz. You've got maybe 8 questions at most for a client attraction quiz at the very least. Because you just like we just don't have the attention spans. And even if you're going to solve my biggest 3 a.m. question, I'm still not going to, sit there for 20 minutes and go through question after question. So, if you've got 8 questions and use them, you know, in a way that tells a story. If you can tell a story with the questions and get them to an answer that they understand, you're well ahead of the people that are out there just saying, "What's your dog's name? What color of car do you drive? And what you have for breakfast? Here's your financial plan." That's a bad quiz. All right? Like let's just face
That's
it, that
bad.
doesn't make any sense,
Unless,
right?
of
So
course, you
people are going to be
answered, I
like,
have a Great Dane, my car is red, and it's like,
"Mm,
okay, you need a lot of money. I can
yeah."
probably pinpoint that one. So when you're working with somebody to kind of get their quiz, what kind of information do they need ahead of time, if anything, or do you help them to kind of brainstorm that? What does that process look like when they're working with you?
Yeah, so a quiz works best, or it works at all, really, when you do have an ideal client that is very tight, niche down, right? If you serve everyone, a quiz isn't going to help you because not everyone has the same 3 a.m. question, right? So if you have multiple 3 a.m. questions for your ideal client, my challenge to you is you can probably niche down even more, like to one, solid 3 a.m. question. So, having that target audience really, like your ideal client really clear, helps you to actually be able to create a story with questions and get to solutions for those people. So really, coming in knowing that, or at least, having that pretty well defined. And then there might be some, let's look at, some market research tools to make sure that we've got the right language. But I know that my client is 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs and business owners who are looking to deepen their client relationships. Okay, if that's what we're dealing with, then that we can move in from there.
Which brings us up to a good point, I think, is does it have to be a problem that they're thinking about at 3 a.m. or could it be something that they're really excited about at 3 a.m.?
Oh yeah, I mean, what they're really excited about could be like like the wish. Like, how do you get to the wish? How do I get to the dream vacation? Like, what's your next step to, 7 figures? Or what's your next step to the private jet? Right? Or, like you can the other thing about quizzes is you can have a lot of fun. Like it doesn't have to read like the census, right? Like you can like make the questions, what's if your business was an author, what author would it be? Like are you more Warren Buffett? Are you more Oprah? Are you more like what you can ask questions in a way that gets you the information that you want and still be kind of fun, depending on your ideal client, if that makes sense for them. I wouldn't, try to be really quirky with necessarily like a really buttoned down ideal client audience. Your ideal client best, but you also want to shine with your personality. Like my quiz has, at the follow-up sequence, it's got Gaelic in it. It's cheersing everyone for taking the quiz with a harp. It's, like it has some fun in it. It has my personality in it because you don't want your ideal clients to show up and think you're going to be one way and then you're another. Right? Because that's a bait and switch that they're gonna be like, "Oh, I thought this girl was gonna be so cool and fun, and she's all buttoned down and, like, it's all rules," and you're like, "I don't want that," and then they bolt. It's 'cause they thought they were getting something else. So, being true to yourself it can be a lot of fun too. I mean, a quiz is your J.K. Rowling moment, right? So, if you watch Harry Potter, all the witches and wizards go to Hogwarts. The witches and wizards are the target audience, but everyone gets sorted into a house, right? Based on their characteristics, what they need and their personalities. You get to create Gryffindor and Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw for you, for your business, like whatever that looks like for you. It can, it can be very literal in the naming, or it can be fun, red dragon or blue dragon, or whatever is, that you're trying to get across to your ideal client. So there's a huge creativity part of it too that you can have a lot of fun with.
Clearly, we've never spoken about the only Gaelic I know, but my quiz would be slightly different. Almost made her spew her coffee.
I know what the Gaelic is that you know. I know.
Awesome. All right, so in a moment, I'm going to ask you about a Cinderella story of one of your clients. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break.
Are you running a business over 7 figures but still struggling with technology headaches? Pay attention, you do not want to miss this offer. This podcast episode is brought to you by Awareness Strategies, who is offering a custom-built digital adoption roadmap for anyone running a business over 7 figures who's wanting to grow their business in the next 5 years. And it's not just a roadmap, they offer full implementation as well if that scares the out of you. Check out awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap for more details today. The link's in the show's notes. Don't regret not doing this. Do it now. That's awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap.
So I am super excited to hear about your Cinderella story.
Yeah, so I had one client. It was a couple actually, and so we were going through. They were just starting their business. They knew their ideal client, but he had some pretty strong ideas of how that ideal client would speak, and would think about the problem that they were having. And it took a little bit of time, took a little bit of extra research, a little bit of extra, like, let's put some stuff out on Facebook and see what pops and what doesn't. And to convince him that, the way that he was thinking, he's on the other side of the solution. So his language wasn't actually what his ideal clients were actually saying, and what they were kind of expressing. So took a little time to get him there. But once he was there, he was all on board. And we went ahead and we actually created a what is your coaching superpower quiz. And it was really cool because what we did was, we gave everyone what their superpower was, whether it was empathy or intuition or communication. But then we also did the flip side to say, like, that's great. You're an intuitive coach, but your kryptonite is XYZ. So, like, as an intuitive coach, maybe you don't have the boundaries, maybe you take everything so personally, or whatever it is. These are the things that you need to watch out for. And these are the things that we help in our coaching practice to make sure that you leverage your superpower without falling down on the kryptonite. And that conversation, that quiz went over very well with their ideal clients, and they started to have sales conversations. Or, the next conversation was not about what the program was, not about what was included, not, it was how much do I have to pay to get into what tier. So it was more about how do I get started and what makes the most sense. um and then they kind of flew from there. So that it took a little while to get there, but once we had the right questions and the right information to give people to show my clients as a subject matter experts, but also to give their ideal clients like a little bit of thought, like a little bit of stuff to kind of mull over and say, oh yeah, no, I need them. I need to get, yeah, that's my kryptonite, and I need to get um some tools and tips to make sure that I don't fall to that. So they were able to really kind of harness that. And then it leads into social media, then it leads into posts, then it leads into conversations on podcasts and so on about, oh, this one person had this kryptonite and this one person had that kryptonite, and this is how we help them. And it became a whole like viral thing actually. So it was neat to see that from start to finish.
That is awesome. I know our listeners are going to want more from you. How did they start that journey with you?
So the best way is to find out what a quiz, maybe looks like, and to experience one is to take one. And my quiz happens to help you understand where that gap is between the problem that you solve and the solution. So what is the communication gap that might be happening for your ideal client, that, as you talked about your solution, they're not connecting their problem to your solution. So if you want to learn more about how to close that gap, you can just go to quizformybiz.com and learn a little bit more about how to make sure that you're closing the gap between the problem that your client has and the solution that you have, and that they understand that your solution is for them.
Nice. Which for maybe is. And so we will, of course, have Catharine's links in the show notes. So go ahead and scroll down, open up in a new browser, because we're not done yet. And it was fun. So you can give yourself 5 seconds to get it done. So I do get to ask you at this point, at what point in life did you know you were especially kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
I'm not sure that I'm there yet.
You missed
I think I'm
myself.
still in crazy land.
Denial.
I think that it was, yeah, it does. It honestly does take a special kind of crazy. And thank God that there's more of us out there that we can like lean on each other for support, because if you want something easy, then go get a job. Honestly, Walmart greeter, would you like fries with that? Whatever you need to do, like off you go, because this entrepreneurship is the biggest personal development course that you'll ever take, and it's a daily conversation. I got to a point where I needed to leave corporate, mostly because where I lived, it was a 3-hour daily commute, and this is pre-COVID. So this is before everyone was always, working from home or whatever. That wasn't an option. So when I left Pepsi, I decided that I didn't want to go back, at least for a little while, and I was going to dip my toe into, entrepreneurship. So I started in network marketing, actually, which was great. I mean, it's a great little business model. It was great products. It was great services. It was great people, events, so on. And I quickly learned that I was really, really good at lead generation, and I really, really sucked at client attraction. So I had all of these leads that I would spend hours on the phone with, just trying to convince them. I would, had paid advertising going out and like crazy, like, hand over fist. But I wasn't getting any clients because I wasn't attracting my ideal client, because I didn't even have that conversation yet. Like I didn't even know how to do that. So it became, like either you go back to corporate and you get back in the car for 3 hours a day, or you figure it out. And there's not enough audiobooks or podcasts in the world to get me back in the car for 3 hours a day. So I had to figure it out. And that's when I got a mentor, and he showed me, he introduced me to quiz funnels, and the rest is history. I kind of fell into it a little bit, and it was really about being stubborn about not wanting to commute. That's how I got to crazy. I just didn't want to commute anymore. Like I was
That will
done.
drive anybody crazy, so we can appreciate that, especially down the 401.
The commute drove me to entrepreneurship. That's it. Like I was done.
You've been absolutely awesome. Any last words for our peeps?
Just remember to ask with intention. Don't ask just for the sake of asking, but if you ask with intention and you really listen, you're going to be so much further ahead in developing the community that you want to develop.
I love it. Catharine, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and I know how valuable it is.
Thank you.
Awesome. Peeps, this is Michelle Nedlock. Thank you for being here with us today. Be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your friends. We love helping entrepreneurs grow.
Are you running a business over 7 figures but still struggling with technology headaches? Pay attention, you do not want to miss this offer. This podcast episode is brought to you by Awareness Strategies, who is offering a custom-built digital adoption roadmap for anyone running a business over 7 figures who's wanting to grow their business in the next 5 years. And it's not just a roadmap, they offer full implementation as well if that scares the out of you. Check out awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap for more details today. The link's in the show's notes. Don't regret not doing this. Do it now. That's awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap.